Hello, welcome to this month's edition of Around the Burg. I'm Mayor Dick Church, and today we are at the Mound facility interviewing the leadership of Secure Cyber. And with us is Sean Waldman, who is the Chief Executive Officer here at Cybersecurity. I was here for the grand opening. I was impressed, and that's why we wanted to come out and share with our viewers what you really do here, because cybersecurity today is on everybody's mind.
Right.
They have a computer, and I'm told you up front, I'm not into the computers. I do email, and that's about it. But there are people out there that have all kinds of gadgets in their house.
Right.
I'm going to start out by saying, when did you decide to get into the cybersecurity field, and what motivated you to start Secure Cyber Defense?
Sure. Well, first, Mayor, I want to thank you for coming out today and interviewing us. So what got me into cybersecurity specifically was, so I've been in IT in this area since around 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And cybersecurity really started becoming a thing around 2009. And I was at an employer here in the area. We were just starting and getting into cybersecurity regulations. I was doing law enforcement regulations at that point. So when I was finished with that around 2013, 2014, I really enjoyed what I did. And by that time, the industry really started picking up. Companies were, looking for cybersecurity help.
Sure.
And I just saw an opportunity and thought, this might be a good opportunity to break into something more specialized, because up to this point, cybersecurity and IT were considered kind of a thing, like together.
Sure.
And it was around that time, the 2013 range, that we started seeing cybersecurity kind of peel off into a specialty. So I took the plunge and said, we're gonna do something very specific, and this is what we ended up doing. So,
well, every news report, there's normally some business or corporation's been hacked into by someone. So.
Correct.
So how big is the cybersecurity market in 2019, and how fast is it predicted to grow?
From a employee, like IT security employee or cybersecurity employee, there's about 1 million unfilled positions. So the actual market, I think by like 2026, was supposed to be in the billions and one of the largest industries of all. So there's a lot of unfilled positions. The problem that we're facing right now from a growth standpoint, cybersecurity wise, is the amount of trained employees that are available. So the pool is very low. So right now we're starting very low. There are programs like the Girl Scouts are actually offering a cybersecurity badge at that level. So we're seeing younger people, STEM schools, and then we're actually taking the older folks like myself and converting IT people into cybersecurity people.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kind of the two plans, but the market is gigantic.
What are the advantages of staying in the Dayton area?
The Dayton area is very high tech. There's a lot of high tech industry in this area. You've got things like University of Dayton Research, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's a lot of our colleges are doing some very high tech work. So it's kind of a secret, that this area is actually very high tech. I don't think a lot of people realize that or know it. And a lot of it is because a lot of the work that's being done is not public work. So it's it's government work. Some of it's top secret. But there's a lot of high-tech research and cybersecurity. Our business, this is a great place for this specifically.
Okay. I used to own a business here in Burg. As a small business, what are the biggest cybersecurity risks that they face today?
Yeah, the biggest risk is, well, first of all, small businesses are the #1 target. So believe it or not, statistically speaking, small businesses are the first ones to get compromised, and there are many reasons for that. I think the top reason for that is a lot of bad actors out there know that small businesses are vulnerable because maybe they don't have the cash flow maybe they don't have the knowledge, maybe they don't have the access to the resources that large companies do. And that's why, you know, on the small business side, statistics say that even a small business that's breached one time, I think it's in the 60 or 70% range, will go out of business because they can't afford the hit.
Sure.
So this is a very hard time to start a company and comply with all the regulations that might be required and do everything that you need to keep your business safe.
What industries are hacked the most?
Well, certainly, you know, the industries that you see mostly are like retail type things, without naming, you know, retail. Sure. Okay, so retail is usually big.
I would imagine banks.
I'm sure banks are targeted, but they're not compromised. So there are some really big reasons for that. The ones that would be compromised the most would be your hotels are definitely hit hard. Fast food or, you know, retail, all those areas are hit hard. Those are generally the areas that we see compromises happening most. Banks are probably very heavily targeted, much like large companies like Microsoft and Apple, I'm sure, are targeted very heavily. But those companies invest lots of money and lots of resources into that.
How's hacking been sophisticated over the years? Used to be that a homeowner, all you had to worry about is hoping somebody's not going to break into your house.
Right.
Now, with the computers and all the cybersecurity,
right,
you don't know what's being done in your own home.
Yeah.
Through the internet.
Yeah, so it's gotten way sophisticated. So the hacks that we were seeing back in the early 2000s compared to the ones that we see now are very sophisticated. So it's evolved. A lot of it's a cat and mouse thing. So, you know, somebody compromises a company and we learn from that, and then we adapt controls to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And then the hackers looked at how we adapted to that, and then so it's a constant evolution, right, of protect, hack, you know, find out how they did it, you know, fill that hole. It just keeps getting more complex.
Okay. Now the people behind us,
right.
Are they assigned just one business, or are they looking at several businesses that they have to monitor during the day?
They're looking at all of the businesses that we protect. Some of the analysts that are back there have expertise in certain areas. Like there might be somebody that's trained heavily in email. There might be somebody that's trained in desktop antivirus. Incident response might be something. So even though some of them back there have very specialized skill sets, they're all looking at the information that's coming in from the companies that we monitor, and then they're responding to whatever that event is.
We hear a lot about state-sponsored cybercrime. Is that just focused on governments, or is it a problem elsewhere?
No, so state-sponsored crime is something that's that affects everyone. Of course, we see in the news about governments, you know, going after each other from a cyber perspective. We have documented cases of state-sponsored crimes that are hitting non-governmental entities. Matter of fact, there are a lot of cases where they were hitting large corporations.
Okay, I'm the mayor of a modestly sized community. We got 20,000 people here.
Right.
What cybersecurity issues do local governments face?
That's a really good question, because we see that local governments seem like maybe they're not vulnerable, or maybe they're less vulnerable, and I think it's just the opposite. So whether it's Miamisburg or Dayton or Los Angeles, every local government agency has a prized possession, and that's information about their citizens. Sure. So whether it's you know, court information or taxes or water, you know, anything that any of the core things that a city would offer is vulnerable, because there's personally identifiable information that's connected with all that: Social Security numbers, date of births, you know. Sure. So you know, local governments are just as vulnerable. But I think more local governments need to maybe pay a little extra attention.
This is one I think everybody's going to be interested in. I get quite a bit of spam,
right,
as everybody does.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah.
Is email spam something you need to worry about?
Yes. So I think it's like 95% of all data breaches or most compromises to a company originate from email. So the hackers know that if I can try and manipulate you into clicking on something, then they have a very high percentage of getting a virus or something into your personal computer, your work computer. So what you're seeing is the email providers like Gmail and Yahoo and those types, they're doing the best they can to try and stop that spam from getting to you. But it's not 100%. So the last percentage, that we rely on people who are getting email is to be educated about how to spot what a bad email looks like and then what to do with it or what not to do with it. So you will notice that it will continue to increase. It'll get more sophisticated. They'll certainly try and get the emails to look like an email from your bank or an email from somebody that you know, to try and get you into being comfortable and clicking on it.
Well, for one, I don't click on any company or anything that I'm not aware of.
Right.
Yeah. And I would hope other people would do that too.
Me too.
I keep hearing about everything moving into a cloud, and I'm ignorant on the computers, so what's a cloud?
Well, the cloud, very simply, is somebody else's computer. When we talk about moving stuff into the cloud, or like your cell phone, for example, there aren't a lot of digital cameras out nowadays because most people just take pictures with their cell phone. Sure. And they'll say, well, my pictures are okay because it's in the cloud. You've got to be careful with that because the cloud is not this rescue boat that you should be heading off to because it's all glorious there. A lot of companies and people get into trouble with utilizing the cloud because they utilize it in an improper manner, or they don't realize that the cloud doesn't come with security. I think that's probably the most common thing that we run into, is that companies just assume that Microsoft's cloud already has all the security that they need, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So be very careful with utilizing the cloud. Utilize it in a smart way, and make sure that you've got all the security controls turned on and everything.
Where's Facebook in this? Everybody's on Facebook.
Oh boy, Facebook is all over the place. As a matter of fact, they're building a new data center in New Albany, Ohio. That's how big they're getting. So they need yet another data center. I don't know how many they have, but it's a lot. Facebook, Twitter. I have young children and I have teenagers, and I always caution them, and I would caution everybody with anything that you do on social media is a permanent record.
Sure.
And all of those providers like Facebook and Twitter are always changing the security of that product. So you've really got to stay on top of it. I'm sure you see and I see people all the time saying, I've been hacked, don't answer this message for me because somebody compromised my Facebook. And that's just because people are not utilizing Facebook's security controls that they should be using.
What do you do when you discover a breach in security, like what these people are monitoring?
If we were to get alerted to something like that or detect that somebody unauthorized is in an environment, one of the first things that we do is we would turn to that particular company's incident response plan. So there are pre-built plans, almost like a playbook in football, that when that particular instance comes up, then we go to that playbook for that company and we run that play. So it's something that we document for companies, we help practice it for them, because the worst thing you can possibly do is, I'll use an analogy, right? So you don't want to learn the escape plan of your house while it's on fire. So you would want to utilize the escape plan for your house before that happens. So we do the exact same thing with cybersecurity. So we run through those situations with companies before it happens.
During the open house you had here, you told me that you were talking about opening up an educational center for cyber security.
Right.
Where does that stand?
That's the Go Cyber Center, and that's in the adjacent 5,000 square feet that we just acquired. Right now we're in the fundraising phase, I guess. So we're looking for partners to help us. We're actually going to stand up a separate organization that's just focused on cybersecurity. The goal of the Go Cyber Center is to offer at the onset executive level training so that we can get our business owners and our executives in the area. Miamisburg has experienced a lot of growth with corporations moving in. So my goal would be to take your new businesses that are coming in and in a non-sales manner, get them into the Go Cyber Center at no charge and be able to educate them about cybersecurity and what it means for their business. Okay. We're hoping to open it at the first of the year.
Let's take it another step.
Okay.
School, in the high schools especially.
Right.
Well, in any school, because even the elementary schools I go into, their kids are on computers.
Right.
Should this be a class that the school system should be looking at to educate young people?
Absolutely, yes. Schools, colleges, I think that, you know, any type of education that we can get, this is a connected world, and you and I were talking about that earlier. Everything, almost everything that we have is connected in some way. In order for us to be successful about cybersecurity, you have to be educated on what is secure and how do I get there, right? Cybersecurity is not a destination, it's a journey. So it's a road that never ends, but you got to learn how to stay on it. I would absolutely encourage school systems to educate students on especially things like the dangers of, and they may already do this to an extent, but the dangers of social media and how it can be damaging.
Okay. One of the things we talked about earlier, and a lot of people talk about this, how safe is it in our homes that we're not being monitored? You know, we got that cable box.
Yeah.
We've got Alexa.
Yeah, right.
I know that some of my friends, we talk a lot about this, that we feel that we're probably being monitored all of the time and not really realizing that.
Yeah.
That these gadgets, I mean, Alexa especially, it's going on all the time.
Sure.
So how safe are we in these situations?
So, you know, Alexa responds to her name for a reason, right? Because she has to be listening all the time. It has to be listening all the time in order for her to respond. So, you know, you're as safe as you want to be. If you introduce things like smart home systems and Alexa and artificial intelligence and, you know, if you connect your toaster to your network at your house, you know, those are all degrees of security. You're accepting that into your environment. So there has to be a degree of, you're going to give up some things in order to have that level of convenience, right? So you may give up the fact that Amazon can hear you and they know what you're talking about, and they're going to potentially use that to deliver ad content. How many times have you picked up Facebook only to see an ad about something that you were just talking to somebody about? I know that's creepy, but you know, those are the types of things, that's how they target you now. So they see your search history, they know who you're chatting with. There are terms and conditions and legal, you know, verbiage that's listed for all of these products, and a lot of it, they're disclosing that they're not rights, but they're things that you're giving up in order to have access to that type of service.
There's a lot of talk about the 2016 election, whether Russia really got in and affected our election.
Right.
It's possible. I mean, in my mind, just what you just said, they ought to be able to do that.
Right.
Companies like yours provide that safeguard.
Right.
Okay. How many employees do you have here?
Right now we have 11. There is actually one in Indiana. So we have an engineering office in Indiana that's close to Louisville because we have a customer base there. Sure. The other 10 are based out of this facility full time, and that's grown since we opened in 2015. It was just me. Yeah. So in four and a half, almost 5 years, we're up to 11 full-time people. And
you expect that growth to keep hopefully growing?
Yeah, I would hope so. Yes. We certainly expect growth. We're experiencing growth. We'll be adding other positions in the future. Some of them will just be, you know, administrative assistance type things. You know, the others will obviously be, you know, the goal was to fill this room up with engineers.
What kind of training did these people back here have to have?
Since the cybersecurity industry itself is new, a lot of the education is new as well. So there's a lot of technical training that can be obtained, certificate-based programs where they can go and get things like Security Plus and Network Plus, and there's some very specific cybersecurity type certifications that they can achieve. A lot of the colleges in the area, matter of fact, one of them is back here is a recent Wright State graduate, and he obtained a cybersecurity degree. But that's all evolving. So there are cybersecurity degrees out there, but there are also certificate programs that you can get as well.
How do you go about getting customers?
That's a good question. So we don't have a sales department here. So one of the things that, the thing that we've always grown on has just been referrals. So, which is the best way to grow, right? Sure. So, other companies recommend you to other organizations because they know you. So we're a security company. So that trust factor, you've always got to get over first, right? So if you can get introduced by somebody that knows you, then I'm already past that part, and I don't have to prove to myself how secure I am. One of our core values is to be excellent at what we do. So that means high ethics, high integrity, just being a super service company. So that's how we grow.
How did you select the Mound facility for this operation?
Actually, your economic development director provided this information to us. So we had actually been looking for about 2 years to get out of the facility that we were at. And we had been just going through regular real estate channels and striking out every time. So yeah, Chris Fine was very instrumental in helping us locate this.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you in Miamisburg.
We're glad to be here.
Well, there you have it. You've heard a lot about cybersecurity, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, because even our conversation before, it's an interesting subject that we should all be aware of. And thank God we've got companies like Secure Cyber. To have companies like that that's going to help us through some of the situations that might occur. And we're just glad to have you here at the Mound facility, and I hope you keep growing. It's an interesting topic. Hope you've enjoyed today's program. I'm Dick Church, and I'll see you around the Burg.